Welcome to the WellPlayed DLC podcast, Australia's juiciest gaming podcast, powered by SteelSeries, but more on that later. I am Zach Jackson. Joining me on this three-piece feed is James Wood.
Howdy, gamers.
And Nathan Hennessy.
Oh, hello.
As Will Smith once said, just the three of us tonight. That's a reference to his song, Just the Two of Us, but it didn't really work, so I apologize.
I figured. And I wondered if you were making like a meta joke about their open marriage. And I was like, that's very smart of you, Zach.
Yeah, see, that's where I was like, am I doing that?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
I always forget that he ever did music. There you go.
Right, his first album, 2000 and something, it's called Big Willie Style. There you go.
Police!
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think Jaden was in that song as a child.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe no, I think it's actually about Jaden. Anyway, we move on. How are we all?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Yeah. I got a lot to think about now, Big Willie style. So
Mate, his second album, Millennium.
God damn, Will Smith. Fucking hitting it out of the park 20 years later.
I think Millennium was Wild Wild West album? Or was that anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I think. And Will 2K?
Take, like, of all the things your memory could store. Dang.
I told you. Remember how I told you all my CDs? I can remember like all the tracks. This is where I'm at. I used to have those.
He does. He can quote the track list.
I think I am. Actually, here's some meta for you, Nathan. You remember Cunningham's?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's who I gave my Will Smith CD collection to.
Just to line the walls.
That's it. What
a beautiful place.
Well, it's been a hot day for us, Nathan. How's the heat over in Adelaide? Spicy?
Yeah, it started fine, then it went muggy, and now it's just raw heat. So
I think tomorrow.
It's not been a pleasant lineup.
The next couple of days are going to be pretty rough, I think, for us. Yeah.
Yep.
No one went to Swifty on the weekend?
No.
I thought you might have, James. Well,
look,
I'm
a fan of the music, but that's about it.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate from a nice arm's distance. It's also because it's like, I'm a man in my 30s. I don't need to be hanging out at a Taylor Swift concert necessarily. No offense to the men in their 30s who do. More power to everyone involved.
I was about to say, I think that's still a sizable demographic.
Oh, no, it absolutely is. But I just think about, like, I don't want to take a ticket away from some young, impressionable white girl. She can go and have the time of her life.
Moral king. Love it.
I know. Yeah, I'm really quite selfless.
Yeah, they on the same night in Melbourne. Oh, sorry, on the same night being the Friday night, the first night. Good old my mates, the Goo Goo Dolls and Matchbox 20 were playing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really wanted to go just mainly see the Goo Goo Dolls, but $200 and something I think for tickets. So 180-ish it might have been. Sorry, but I did not buy them obviously because I didn't go.
I used to enjoy a lot of Matchbox 20. No way I could listen to it now. But
that first album is still a good album. The rest of it kind of
Yep, that's how it feels.
From Taylor Swift to Dad Rock, hey? Shout outs.
We cover it all here at WellPlayed.
We do. Speaking of covering it all, let's talk about some video games.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have been pledging away at Deathloop still. That's pretty much been my week.
How you find it?
I do really like it. Like I do like those kind of, that Dishonored type of game. That I just wish I had a good chunk of time just to commit to it. I'm trying to do that now. Well, I kind of got nothing on my plate, but we'll see. I don't know how many loops. I mean, I don't know if it tells you how many loops you've done right, but I'm now like I think I'm getting close. Maybe I'm halfway-ish or just over halfway, perhaps. So I'm starting to find out a lot about the people and like where they'll be and where the best place to maybe take them out is. So
yeah, I found that once it starts picking up momentum, things start moving really, really fast. You may even be further through than you realise.
Yeah, well, I can't really remember how much I've played before, so maybe like 8 to 10 to 12 hours in total. Maybe 10.
Only about a 12-hour game.
Yeah,
Zach hours, am I right?
Yeah. Speaking of Zach Hours and Zach Games, so I got a code for the Inquisitor, or I the Inquisitor. I'm actually not sure what it's actually called. I think it's just called the Inquisitor now. On PS5. That game has Piranha Bytes and Elix written all over it, if you know what I'm saying. Not
I
to
certainly do.
look. It looks like a PS3 game. I feel like it's being mean, but it looks like a late gen PS3 game, right? Like The Last of Us on PS3, I think looks better than this game. Maybe an early PS4 game,
Right.
if we're being generous. But this thing runs like dog ass, mate. Like this is unplayable. Like on PS5, it is unplayable. The screen tearing is insane. It does this thing where it like flashes like very very microly, with like colors and then like static like white noise.
Oh, so it's like proper busted.
Yeah, it's like I can. So when like you're running, my eyes go kind of a bit funny because all the screen tearing and stuff. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I can play through some pretty tough Eurojank, but I can't play that. So I only played maybe 15 minutes, and I was like, no, I can't. I just can't. I gotta wait for like a patch. So I might not ever get to review that because I don't know if it's gonna be fixed in time. And the quality seems interesting. The opening one of the opening conversations so coming from something like a Banishers, where the voice acting and the writing is just phenomenal, to the Inquisitor, obviously very very different budget types of games, but that level that quality is just dropped right off. So there you go, the Inquisitor. I'm still vaguely interested in the game, but it does not run very well at all. That's pretty much been my week for gaming. So, James, how about you?
I have started Final Fantasy X, which I am very much enjoying so far. Still like opening hours of the experience, but very melancholic, very bright at the same time as well. Kind of Star Wars prequels by way of Japanese fantasy. Very, very happy with it aesthetically. Tonally very cool. Combat is turn-based still, obviously, but very fast-paced and very just a lot of dynamic camera angles and very like flashy animations, which makes it feel less turn-basedy. And like I don't mind turn-based really, but it's also not my preferred combat style. So having a bit of style to kind of like jazz it up is quite nice. So I've been enjoying that. I played Ark Survival Evolved for the first time, and I thought it was fine. Have either of you played it?
Yeah, look, I've dipped my toes into Survival Evolved. It obviously presents a pretty gigantic barrier of entry.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Throws a lot at you at the start, and it's brutal at the start. So I've never really I've never really managed to get to a point where I could like tame anything interesting or build anything worthwhile.
Yeah, fair
Just
enough.
kind of explore, and it looked so interesting.
Yeah,
At the
it does
time.
look interesting. I think it's fine. It's just like me and the lads were looking for like our next co-op survival experience, and this has kind of been the thing that popped up. It was cheap. It was relatively easy to get going.
Yeah.
But I think we're all just waiting for Sea of Thieves to drop on PlayStation. So hopefully that announcement's coming at some point soon. But I think that's about
The second arc's not out yet, is it? It's still like
no. They
What they're doing,
released Ark Ascension, which is like a remake, right, of the first one.
Survival Ascended, Unreal 5 engine remake of which ironically is kind of landed with all the same issues that Ark Survival Evolved had when that launched as one of the early Unreal Engine 4 games. So, it's all just kind of repeating. It's got like an $80 price tag on it or something though, which is wild.
That's why we went with the old one. We were like, we don't want to sign up to be like effectively beta testers for a full price product here with what Ascension has kind of become. And it was a bit much for a bit of silly sort of weekend fun. So yeah. I also watched a mate play through Deracine, the FromSoft VR game. Yeah. really, really cool, weird little experience. I still want to play it myself, but I just know I'm never gonna get a PSVR. It's just not gonna happen for me in this lifetime.
Mm.
But yeah, seems cool. It seems like they kind of made an orphanage and filled it with a bunch of like Dark Souls NPCs as children, which is a really great premise. Everyone's kind of weirdly disaffected and British. So I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm glad From Software made something that wasn't just continued franchise stuff. I'd
Mm.
like to see them get back to a bit of their original kind of vaguely spooky roots. So, yeah.
How does watching like on YouTube like a playthrough? How does that work? Does it look like a normal game, or does it look
Yeah,
a
so
bit
on
funky
the
because
share play was like a kind of like a fish lens almost, but it took up most of the screen, so it wasn't particularly disorientating. The movement took a little bit to get used to watching someone else kind of look around and stuff, but for the most part, it's fine.
cool, very nice.
Yeah.
Nathan, what do you mean getting stuck into?
I'm deep in those trenches. I don't think I've
Mm.
played anything for
No,
personal play. Oh, just a bit of Baldur's Gate 3 with April. I think we're inching towards that finish line. That's just been about it. It's one of
cool.
those games we'll pop maybe 2 hours in every couple of like two nights a week.
Solid. Good stuff. All right, before we get stuck into our review discussion, I'll just give a quick shout outs to, sorry, not two, but I'll give some quick review shout outs. So we've got 3 reviews that are up on the website at the moment you can go and read. Josephina, she published her review for Diets and Deities, the the Northern Territory or the Darwin made game by Larrikin Interactive, and she says, set against beautiful landscapes populated by a cast of wickedly cool deities, Diets and Deities is a short multicultural rhythm game which seeks to make your body move, your taste buds dance, and your heart engage with its casual gameplay experience, combining deep story themes, exploring cultural preservation and consumption. Gave it a 6.5. I think, yeah, so from reading her review, essentially the game is neat, but it's only about 90 minutes long, so it kind of feels like nothing has time to gel together, or you don't get the full experience because it's over kind of before you started. Big old Marky Mark has done a review for Helldivers 2. Maybe you've heard of it. And he says, crafted with intelligence and brimming with chaotic good vibes, Helldivers 2 sets the kind of tone many others in the action space should take notice of, overcoming some early tech issues by being a sheer delight to play. He gives that a 9 out of 10. Very, very nice. And Charlie Braithwaite, who is a new addition to our team, he has reviewed Oblivion Override, which came out December. I actually should know that, shouldn't I? I did look at the date, but I've already forgotten. We'll get a fact check there from James. But Charlie writes, Oblivion Override is a tight roguelike with Metroidvania elements and an awesome range of weapons to choose from. It has plenty on offer to delight fans of the genre, all wrapped up in a pretty robot killing package. Gives that an 8 out of 10. And James says the game comes out on...
PC release was the 14th of June last year, so I'm guessing we're talking about a console drop here, which I haven't seen yet. But the game does look really cool.
I think it's out of early access, maybe. Anyway.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Anyway, the game is out now. That's all you need to know, and the review is up there for you to go and read it. Once again, we did put out our talk through with Solium Infernum developers, League of Geeks. You can go check that out on the website. On YouTube. Please give it a watch. It is a good time with Adam, Nathan, and the team there at League of Geeks. Got some exciting things in the works for talk through. So hopefully, if you are liked and subscribed to our channel, you can you'll see those come up in the near future. But something that James has been itching to chat about, the Scallywag. He is keen on talking about Skull and Bones. He has reviewed it for Press Start. Nathan is doing the review for WellPlayed. You boys have... Well, James, you've got your review up. Nathan, you've effectively finished yours. Let's talk about Skull and Bones. Nathan, I want to hear from you because James and I, we've already spoken about it. But Nathan, how did you find the long-awaited Skull and Bones experience?
Unlike James and Zach here, I've not had any prior hands-on experience with Skull and Bones. In fact, I've not really seen much of this outside some of the early marketing and obvious advertising that has led up to this game.
Have you been to Singapore
And
though?
sorry,
But have you been to Singapore?
only via the airport, mate. I've not stepped
Did
out.
you get food poisoning for Ubisoft Skull and Bones?
Oh, that's hardcore dedication, man. Absolutely not. And yeah, that's not something that I'd take lightly. You
No.
poor soul. Wow.
Mm.
But look, so this is the Ubisoft live service patented formula applied to what is pretty much the naval combat, naval exploration of Black Flag and some of the latter Assassin's Creeds, just sort of isolated into its own thing. And you'll be playing and seeing up to about 18, I think, different people as you're going about this world. That's I think it's set in what, the 18th century or
Late
17th,
17th century,
late
I believe.
17th.
Yeah.
Yep, around the West Indies, Indian Ocean. And look, at first glance, things are pretty. There's a lot of ocean here, and you open up your map. There's a lot of icons, and it kind of just all hits you at once. You come across your first hub area. Things look interesting. Very much immediately when you're on your feet, moving around these areas, just like you blokes said in the preview. There's not a whole heap going on. You're just kind of going up, like just kind of awkwardly tumbling up to an NPC because for some reason movement doesn't quite feel right. But that you'll ignore that because you're not going to spend a whole heap of time on land. But yeah, eventually you realize that you're going to just be coming back to this one hub area for virtually the next 10 hours. And in that first 10 hours, you're going to see most of the defining Skull and Bones experience. And that's going to be picking up one of effectively three kinds of missions, whether they're main missions or side missions. They're going to boil down to you're going to go to location X and attack some ships or attack a colony. And otherwise, you're just doing deliveries. Like, it's pretty much just those two. There are some treasure hunts thrown in, but they don't really require any skill. The game just kind of dumps you on a shore, says run around the shore until you find the glowing orange thing. Hooray. That's effectively the three kind of mission types you're going to be playing for the first 10 hours. And then after that, the next 10 hours is really you just investing in getting a bigger boat. You get a bigger boat, you put some good weapons on it, you hit level 20, you hit hour 20 and you've hit the end game. That's effectively boiled down my experience. And it was positive for the most part, if I was able to sort of recalibrate my brain for the experience, because it wasn't an engaging experience. As you can imagine, when you're sailing out in the ocean, there is a lot of downtime, and this game doesn't really do anything to account for that. There's just downtime. And so put a podcast on, and you'll kind of get into that Euro Truck Simulator rhythm with it a little bit, and that was kind of fine if you can desire that experience. If you're wanting something a little bit more of the Assassin's Creed flavor, where you maybe got a little bit of on foot combat, that's not going to happen. There's actually combat in that first 10 hours is actually going to be extraordinarily slow, and you're probably going to be looking forward or wanting that Assassin's Creed combat because your ships are going to start out really underwhelmingly. They're only going to have 3 weapons on them. Those weapons are going to take forever to reload, and you're just going to be chipping away. You're not going to really feel like you've got that pirate experience. This game treats piracy as a vocation, and by God, it's going to make you work for it. So it's not about living out that power fantasy. It's about working towards the ideal of that power fantasy. And by the time you hit the end game, you kind of feel like you're only just getting started and the content is already kind of dried up. There's an end game here, kind of cool. It's going to involve effectively going back through the map that you've already spent 20 hours exploring and taking control over different colonies you've come across. All that really looks like is changing the color of the icon on your map, and it allows you to do a couple of things to earn endgame currency. And effectively, if you do this well enough, it'll cascade. You'll be banking up that endgame currency. But I don't really understand what end it's all for, other than the hope of a bigger ship. There's not many ships in this game. At 30 hours, I've only encountered 8 different kinds of ship. I think there might be 9.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think they've also said though that's like, hey, but until the first season pass launches, there's only a limited number of ships, so it's just this is what you get, you know.
So if you think you're going to building out a big dock, you won't, not really. And the ships don't really feel too different to one another in a big way. You've mostly got 3 flavors of ship. You've got, and it's so weird. You've got the DPS ship, right? So the ship that's just going to do lots of damage really fast. You've got the tanky ship, which takes a lot of damage, and then you've got the support ship, which you fire cannons at your mates to heal them. It's a little bit bizarre.
Healing cannons, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and for a game that kind of doesn't expect you to lower your sense of disbelief because it doesn't really go in too much odd territory, it plays it kind of safe. There's no real crazy pirate antics. Everything's kind of highbrow to a sense. It kind of surprised me that there is some kind of weirdness with putting flamethrowers on your ship and healing other ships by shooting at them. That doesn't get weirder. This game kind of struck me as it could have had an opportunity to lead into some of the weirdness we've seen in pirate media over the past 10 years. It doesn't. It's kind of just a theme to sell a live service game. So that's where it kind of starts to come undone. And then beyond that, it's the back half of my experience was incredibly buggy, disconnects, hard crashes, graphical artifacting, and this thing is mostly menus as well. Like if you're not on your destination to drop something off or shoot a ship, you're in menus and menus and menus, and fundamentally they still don't work. There's been a few patches here. They've got issues with response time, so you'll try and click on things and accidentally spend way too much money because it's not responding, or it won't respond at all until you close out of the game and relaunch in. Or the buttons in the menus don't, like, they're contradictory. So I've had a conversation with James where I said one of the buttons that you use to track missions in your map is also the same button that's used to cancel missions from your map. So in trying to track missions, I've cancelled them and lost all my progress, all the items attributed to them. This happens a lot in the game. If a notification pops up on your screen, you would expect to go to the menu associated with that notification. If you try and do that, it makes the notification go away. What we'll just discuss in a moment with James is when it boils down to it, the actual experience of Skull and Bones is just bizarre. It's baffling to me. I don't understand it from a design point of view. Nothing kind of works the way you would think it does, but it's just kind of all bolted together, and you just kind of make the most of the experience. And you know, I did. It wasn't a terrible experience. It wasn't even a bad experience. It just wasn't great. How do you feel about it, James?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I've been nodding the whole time for a reason. It's I think you hit on a good point. Like Skull and Bones, there's very little unity between any of its concepts, and I'm talking from aesthetics to systems to overall experience, right? Like I think you said before about how it does present itself quite straight faced, and it's got a very realistic art style for the most part, and it's leaning into hyperrealism with this graphical fidelity, quadruple A game, all that sort of bullshit that we've heard about. But then at the same time, all the costumes look like they are from a costume store. There are ghost ships. Yeah, exactly. There are giant sea monsters, or a giant sea monster. There'll be more coming in seasonal updates. And so there's a tonal disconnect from the jump. And then, yeah, I don't think any of the systems particularly feed into each other very well. I admire the concept of the end game. Like,
Oh,
I was thinking
absolutely.
about like when I was thinking about my review, like there's that running joke about the Phantom Menace, right? I'm going to talk about Star Wars for a sec.
Here he goes.
Of oh, how could this possibly be a kids movie? It opens with discussions of trade routes, right? That is this game, right?
Perfectly fair.
It is the pirate trade route simulator, and that is cool in theory. In theory, I'm okay with it. The problem is that it always brings you back to that same ship mission structure, which is go and fetch something, fight something, or do both. And it's not particularly interesting or fun after a certain amount of time. I think the ship combat here is fine. I think it works for about 5 hours. I think you could get like a nice little pocket there where you just, like Nathan said, you put on a podcast, you zone out a little bit, you finally find a rhythm with the game. I don't think it's interesting beyond that. And when the end game sort of, and even not even before the end game, a lot of those missions leading up to it as well, health bars just like quadruple. It's a lot of like bullet spongy kind of enemies. You got to run a lot of missions that just have you running around in like little circles of the ocean that you can't leave, otherwise you fail the mission, which doesn't make any sense for a giant slow turning ship, right? Like you don't want to feel as if you could accidentally sort of go out of a zone.
Which happens all the time. Yeah.
All the time, all the time. So yeah, I don't know, that stuff just doesn't, it just doesn't ever come together the way that it should. The through line of my review was like it's a Disneyland attraction. Everything in this game feels artificial and constructed, and ostensibly all live service games fall under this, right? But you've got to do a better job at hiding the artifice of what you've made. And for me, Skull and Bones is just very, very, very brazen about the fact that it is not a lot. And what's there is fine, but it's not great or particularly
Mhm.
interesting, and I don't know how anyone plays this for more than 20 hours.
It certainly doesn't throw you any kind of hooks, any kind of glossy pop-ups, any kind of fanfare whatsoever to ask you to
Mm,
play beyond the credits that don't roll. You know, the game
yeah,
just kind of the story just kind of ends. You won't
yeah.
even see it coming. It just
Oh, you're a kingpin now. You're done.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But on that point, real quick,
Mm,
in my opinion, I thought the writing was good. Like it was fine. The issue is everything it talks about. You know, all the betrayals and decapitations, skullduggery, everything that's kind of wild and wacky and kind of cool about piracy. Everything it talks about happens off screen. None. You don't see anything anyone talks about, and to a bizarre point where in some missions you'll go and you'll assassinate someone, so you'll blow up a ship, and then to prove that you've assassinated them, you're gonna take their head. But the thing is all this is happening off screen. You never actually go onto a ship, find a person, take their head off. It just
mhm.
the objective tracker just updates and says you picked up a head, now go drop it off. Like
Yeah.
it's almost comical sometimes. So there
Mm,
was an effort made with the writing. Just unfortunately, it's not in service to anything, or at least there is no way for you to feel invested because
mm.
you're always on the outside looking in, and your character doesn't have a voice or anything. So it's even then it's just even more impersonal. It's as I say, it's
Exactly.
very very odd. It's just a
Mm.
really odd game. Like
Mhm.
I don't think it's bad at all. I've talked about a lot of criticisms about it. I hope it gets the Ubisoft, you know, year two revival in a way.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
there's definitely a core there that kind of makes me wonder if it was kind of rushed out the door in the last year or so of production just because some things feel so hollow, do with a bit of
Mm.
life and substance.
Mm.
Yeah.
I do want to quickly say I had this in my review notes. It didn't make it into my actual review, but on the topic of like the writing and stuff,
Mm.
being a voiceless protagonist, having everything sort of happen off screen, you very disconnected from the entire experience. At one point, about 15 hours in, you have like a first mate who's this like woman that you meet at the beginning of the game, and while we're just in sailing in the middle of the ocean, she's like, "You're earning my trust, Captain, but there are still secrets I keep close to my heart." And I was like, "We haven't spoken. Like I know nothing about you." It was just the strangest like gesture towards maybe like the bones of what this had been at one point. I don't really know, but
Mm.
it implies a lot and doesn't do very much.
Yeah,
That
well,
runs right through the game.
Yeah.
I have a few questions just based on what we played, James, in Singapore,
Mm,
and we spoke a lot about the writing, and we were like, this is surprisingly uh, mature or adult,
yes. Yeah.
focused. Does that sort
Mhm.
of
Hit
carry
some
on through
themes.
with it? Yeah.
Uh, no.
Okay.
Like I think it talks about things without being about things.
Yeah.
I
Spot
think
on.
is the
Well
best way I
said.
could describe it. Like, and I said this in my review. Like, I think the reason previews skewed positive, and the reason you and I came away from it kind of surprised at what we'd played, is because in its first hours, you're like, there's a lot of potential here. It could go somewhere with a lot of this. And then you just quickly find out after about the 5 hour mark that it doesn't. It kind of plateaus at that point and stays at that level. And that includes things like the ideas and the writing that we were talking about when we saw it.
Yeah. What about like the treasure sort of stuff where you can actually go on land, you can dock onto islands? Uh, yep. Okay.
Um,
Talk to
Nathan, do you have
me.
any points on this or?
I mean, I said it earlier. So because every island, like when you hit a new shore and you can disembark, Every island is effectively laid out the same, and quite often this game has such a distinct lack of art style. Most of the time, you won't even tell the difference between them, but they're effectively a circle. So what you'll do is you'll have a treasure map, right? And as soon as you land on the shore, the game will do a big pop up across the top half of your screen, so you can't miss it, saying the treasure map is indicating it is here. So rather than look at any of the clues, what you do is you just do a quick lap of the island. It's just going to pop out this big orange glowy thing into the night sky. You cannot miss it. Walk over to it, dig it up, off you go. That's it. You've got some coins. You got a couple of cosmetic items. Good for you. Happy days.
I also found that like sometimes, because the way the maps work, right, you get like a vague outline of the island with an X roughly where it's supposed to be. That I never really found that lined up very much. And then there's a smaller sketch next to it of like a landmark or something that's meant to indicate, hey, this is where it is. But because the game has gone for this kind of like, like high fidelity realism, it would be like, oh, look for this tiny like wooden cross. And I'd be like, where? It's just a bunch of trees. Like it's so difficult to discern individual details from this art direction of anything that wasn't the boat or the cosmetics.
Okay. Nathan, what was your feelings on the resources? Like how you got to kind of pull up alongside them, do the little mini game.
Okay, so I guess it just carries exactly on from what James said. So the first thing is, tell me if I'm exaggerating here, 90% of the time that you're trying to look for a resource, you won't actually be able to spot it with your eyes as you're looking out at the game. You're going to have to keep panning your camera until a pop-up on the screen says, press triangle to harvest. You won't know. Like you just, I was playing it with a friend and I said to him, okay, so this is what you need to look for. I'm looking elsewhere because we're playing on a 50-inch screen. Tell me if you see the shiny bit. The shiny bit might be a tree, it might be a rock. Just tell me if you see the shiny. But the shiny is so, like, it's hard to explain, but it doesn't stand out at all. This game desperately needs the yellow paint.
Yeah, right. It's so weird that we went through a whole week of discourse about this, and then we get a game that's a great example.
This game.
Yeah,
there's an argument
because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
One thing.
No,
I was just going to say the one thing that I guess I haven't made clear is the combat does. Like James said, that there's a good 5 hours there, and I'd say during the journey till end game, yes, there is about cumulatively 5 hours at best of good adrenaline-fueled combat. When you hit the end game, this kind of picks up a little bit because the game suddenly has a reason to force players to do things together. Up until that point, no one will help you on anything. There's like live service stuff there, no one will interact. But as soon as you're in the end game, you'll have a lot of situations where you have fleets of like 15 ships, and then you'll have 4 human players all in the same area, all going at it, and then the storm rolls over, so there's really high waves, and that's creating like a barrier of cover between folks. That is awesome, and it feels so natural, and it handles so well. All credit to them. It's quite intuitive. It's the most intuitive part of the game, in my opinion. So that is definitely like, I had a lot of fun in those moments, and there's definitely more of them at the 20+ hour mark if you can endure that long.
Yeah,
I did
the
like
last
the storms.
couple.
I thought they were really good.
That's the question I was going to ask. Is how'd you find the weather in the full game?
Best part.
Yeah.
My favorite's when it's stormy.
Yeah. And I think that if Black Flag didn't exist, this would go down a lot easier. But it isn't. It's missing a lot of the like that intuitiveness, right? So I think the aiming is a really good example of this. Like Black Flag had those big arches that you would see whenever you aim, so you got an idea of where your fire was going to arch to, and they've replaced all of that with just simple reticles, and it just turns it very arcadey. There's no real kind of like sense of like bullet drop or whatever with these things. It's just you shoot, things explode kind of thing.
But for the best.
And obviously a lot's been talked about the whole you can't board ships right now when you do that. And I saw developers talking about how for an online game it would be difficult to kind of balance player models on top of ships that are bobbing up and down in an online server. I totally get it. I believe all of that. I believe it would have been a nightmare to figure out. But then Sea of Thieves is right there as well, and so that becomes kind of like it does feel like a regression on a 13-year-old game. And that is bad. Like you can't really talk around that. And I think for everything Skull and Bones does relatively comfortably, it will always exist in the shadow of Black Flag. And because they talk that this is how it was sold, right? Like it was progenited by this incredible game that we all experienced a decade ago, when we were in our 20s. Well,
Yeah.
Zach and I were. So it's I don't know. It's a bummer. Like I don't want to dislike it, but I don't like it either.
Yeah, so
Fair.
I think we're kind of on a pretty even kill there, and like Assassin's Creed Black Flag is like the pirate power fantasy right out of the bat. To get anywhere close to that in Sea of Thieves, you got to do the work, baby, and it's going to be 15 hours before
Skull and
you get
Bones?
to. Yeah, sorry, Skull and Bones. Yeah, it's going to be like 15 hours.
I did that
before
all week.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be about 15 hours in Skull and Bones before you get to like those early hours, like to what it gives you in the early hours of Black Flag. So it's a very odd experience to compare.
Sea Monster? Because I know that James, you and I, we tried to go and find it, but didn't.
I fought it.
Yeah,
Fought it this morning.
I fought it at around hour 8, right? It wasn't
Really?
the end game iteration of it, but it was just like a slightly smaller one with a different color on it. And I was like, why am I seeing the monster now? But then I saw the end game monster was the red version. I fought a green version. So I don't know if that's just like because you get the little prompt all the time of like, Captain, we've heard of mysteries in the seas nearby. And you can go over and experience like a ghost ship or a whatever. So I don't know if there are just level scaling versions of these things that you can access earlier on if you push out into deeper waters. But I don't know.
I'm gonna just say the ghost ship was a lot of fun. I ended up having like 3 other humans come by at the same time, and we had a great time. That thing just drops like virtually like smoke grenades and just disappears to another part of the sea. It's great. I had a fantastic time with that. No, I just wish this game had more of those ideas at play because they work.
All right, so before we wrap it up, just quickly, what, in your opinion, what should this game have been? Like, are we talking another pirate third-person game with a bit of naval combat, or can this kind of concept work as a full game? Like, because I know that you're saying that there's a lot of things that you like, Nathan, but can those ideas sustain a full like live service title? Like, is there enough there, or what do you think?
Well, if I go first, I think James already said it. It's Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves. So that's already proof of concept. So much of what Sea of Thieves already did like a decade ago, Skull and Bones can't push beyond a menu. You have to understand almost 50% of this game, all of its gameplay ideas is in menus, expecting you to use your imagination. It would have been nice if some of those were just taken out of the menus. So it feels like there was great ideas for Skull and Bones, but in the last year or whatever's happened behind the scenes, rather than dump it, they've just taken it halfway, slapped a UI on it, and said, look, we're just going to keep it behind a menu. I just wish so many of those ideas weren't just menus.
Okay.
If it's Disneyland, it's worth a day pass, but not a season pass, I guess is how I landed on it. Like, there's enough here for a little bit.
Not a 3-park super pass up on the Gold Coast?
I would not lightning pass whatever those things were called this game. No.
Fair enough.
I think you can get it on the premium Ubisoft Plus subscription, like their premium tier. And I would give it a go if I was paying like $15 a month or something. Like you definitely have a time.
Yes.
Hop on that podcast. It's okay.
I think it is worth mentioning that, like, to some degree, that all the future content is free for this. So, well, for the moment, they've said that it's all going to be free. So if you do, invest in this game, they are guaranteeing content for how long we will see, but it's all going to be included in your first purchase. So it's not like you got to drop $100, then drop another 50, 60, whatever it may be for season passes.
Yeah, that definitely does make it go down a little better.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, they're also charging $100 for it.
Correct.
Like, and that's on JB Hi-Fi. Like, JB Hi-Fi who try to push things to 79 where they can. Like, this is not a cheap video game. And I think that
was completely mistaken. I thought it was like one of the. I thought they were doing like Mirage, like 80,
Oh
70,
no,
80.
no.
Oh,
This is quadruple A now, so it's
Is it?
109 on whatever on EB Games. But like so if you think about like if this game was $79 as a standard price, current gen game, and then a
Ooh.
$20 battle pass. But now they're like, oh, don't worry about paying for the battle pass; it's included in the price of the game. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't buy the value proposition on this at all.
No.
I thought it was like 79.
No.
No.
Well, you are wrong.
Cool
Also,
storms though.
can we
Genuinely
just,
cool storms.
how about the water though? How's the water tech in the full experience?
It's all right.
I mean, I liked it more in Assassin's Creed because you would go into the water, right? This is going to sound so dumb. You go into the water, it looks incredible
How's
under the
the
surface. But
what was he gone about? Sediment. How's the sediment?
The sediment. Oh, look, in some parts it does look really nice when the light hits it right and it's refracting and it all looks very pretty. But because you can't touch it, right? Like you can't be afraid of the ocean if you can't drown. You know what I mean? It's a fundamental disconnect of immersion.
the ocean
where
has an invisible wall. If you try, like I tried
Yeah.
this, if you try on the beach, you just
Yeah.
flounder against
Yeah,
the
it's like
invisible
just-
wall.
yeah, I don't know. I don't want to
Alright.
brag on it too
Nah.
much.
Nah. All right. So James, you gave it a 6.5 over on
I
Press
did.
Start. Nathan, what are you? You're still finalizing your score, but how are you feeling right at this moment?
Look, I in my heart, I want it to land somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6. Like, that's what we're going to be haggling over the next few days.
All right. All right. Just very, very quickly, you mentioned this is quadruple A. Has someone come out and said that this is a quadruple A game or something? Have I missed something?
I think it was Eves himself. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no.
It was an Ubisoft exec.
It was one of those big boys at old Ubisoft, but I think they were talking about more the amount of money that had gone into developing it had
Sure.
meant it had emerged as like a quadruple A experience, which is, given the amount of money they would have spent on this thing, yes, on their end it absolutely is. But you can't push that onto the consumer just because you mismanaged a game for a decade. Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
All right. Nice work. You can go read James's review over on Press Start, and Nathan's review will be up either now or sometime in the coming days. We'll take a quick break, and Ash has got some little words to say about our sponsors, SteelSeries.
SteelSeries is renowned for its innovative and award-winning products that elevate your gaming performance and experience, and the new range of Alias microphones are no exception. Alias microphones feature a capsule that is 3 times larger than most microphones on the market, giving your recording richer and deeper audio. And with the free-to-use Sonar software, AI-enhanced noise cancellation eliminates the background noise that other cardioid microphones will capture. With Sonar, SteelSeries has tailor-made an audio suite that offers the complete solution for content creators who want to manage their EQ levels, personal and stream mix, and it works seamlessly with programs such as OBS and many, many more. Available now, Alias Microphones and Sonar features everything you need to take your content creation to the next level.
All right, great stuff there, Ash, and thank you once again to SteelSeries for shouting out, for sponsoring the WellPlayed DLC podcast. Yo, future Zach here. We're just going to pause the show because WellPlayed's Mark and Jordan have actually recorded a little segment for Helldivers 2. They're going to talk about their experiences with the game just in a bit more detail than the shout-outs earlier in the show can convey. So take it away, Mark and Jordan.
Sorry to interrupt, guys, but this just in, we're on the battlegrounds of Helldivers 2. Jordan, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It's loud and boisterous out here, but we just wanted to spend a little bit of time outside of killing bugs to tell you, I'm going to calm down now, about Helldivers 2, because unlike everyone else, we can't be in the podcast booth recording with everyone because... it's a bit messy out here. I don't know about you, Jordan, but I am covered in bug guts, and it's not coming out.
I'm covered in automaton nuts and bolts, personally.
That's a bit of a turn-on for some people.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know. Anyway, so yes, let's talk Helldivers 2, because I wanted to get on the show in some way or form and talk about this, because as much as writing almost a 2,000-word review, which is now on the website, by the way, I wanted to actually talk to you specifically, Jordan, because you've been playing the PC version. whereas I've been on the PS5 version just to get a different sort of point of view on how each experience has been. I will lead off, though, just in case anyone isn't aware what Helldivers 2 is. This is the sequel to the original that came out about 9 years ago on PS4. It's by Arrowhead Game Studios, who I believe are out of Sweden. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
this
about
is
right.
now... yeah, it sounds about right. So the original was a isometric twin-stick shooter, 4-player co-op. This is now a third-person action-adventure 4-player co-op. And the difference, it feels like it's gone from like a 2D PSP-esque sort of game to a full-blown Hollywood epic. That's how it's gone from like indie studio to big studio now.
Yeah,
it has
absolutely.
It has that vibe about it. Long story short, you have your 4-player party. You jump down into a planet. You choose the planet you want to go to. You blow the crap out of bugs and or robots, aka aliens and Terminator and Starship Troopers combined into one. And then you leave, and then you do it again. And you do it as often as you want, and you can change your difficulty level as often as you want. There's just so many different options, but there's no real story. It's just drop in, drop out, and do what you like. And it plays really well. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Now, Jordan, you played on PC.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you, how was your experience in terms of, because obviously, we'll get to it in a minute, there's been a lot of bugs, been a lot of server issues. But what's your performance been like on there?
The performance has been mostly good. I have heard mixed things. Fortunately, I'm on the higher end of PC builds, so like I kind of have the brute force to push past it. But like even smaller things, like I don't know how the controller rebinds for the console version are, but like a really nice thing that the PC version does, at least to my knowledge, is when you rebind a key or a command in the game, you can choose what kind of input it is, whether it's like a double press, a quick tap, a hold. So like having that functionality is really good because I'll give you a good example. A friend of mine who came from The Division, and he's used to double tapping space to do like a dodge or like a roll.
Yep.
And so what he did, based on my recommendation, was he set double tap space to be the dolphin dive. And he's like, it's little things like that makes at least the PC version feel really good. There are a couple misses. You can't set an individual frame cap. There are reasons to do that out because not everyone wants to be chewing all the power from the computer at all times.
That's
but you also can't bring in the HUD elements when you're playing the game to fit to be within a 16:9 ratio when you're playing on an ultra wide. So if you're one of those people that's crazy and has like a 32:9 monitor, you're breaking your neck to look at your UI elements, which can be a bit frustrating. But for the most part, I haven't really had many issues. I do know that AMD cards specifically have had some issues with the global illumination setting in the game. So if you have an AMD card, it's recommended you turn that off for now because it can cause crashes.
Or just play in the dark. It's, you don't have to have lights on. It's fine.
Well, no, that's what the flashlight's for.
Exactly, yeah.
But turn that setting off. It won't make too much of a difference for the game, but you'll find yourself crashing a lot less. The big thing, really, and it's been experienced for both sides, is just the connectivity issues.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the biggest problems, I suppose. But it's one of those things, and I mentioned it in the review as well, it's one of those things where it feels like for a long time, we when you have all these online games, obviously we just had Suicide Squad came out recently, they had their own problems. Destiny 2, you and I have played a lot, and we've had our fair share of issues with that over the many years as well. This is the first time in a long time where I've felt like I've loaded in and it's like server error, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, I don't mind waiting. Like there's no frustration there, because when you do get in and you do start to experience the game, all of that potential anger or frustration over server issues and some of the other things they've had, like you've lost XP after a mission and stuff like that, it just kind of fades away.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. It's that experience of when you do get in and it's just so much fun that it doesn't really matter.
No, absolutely. And I think part of it has to do as well with if you look at the communication between Arrowhead Studios and the player base, it's quite like an open dialogue between the two where they're explaining why there are issues, how they're going to rectify it. But they are openly stating that you are still going to encounter these issues, and they just can't fix them all immediately. They're very open, and they are like upfront about their capabilities as a developer in terms of bug fixing, pun not intended because we're killing bugs, but
exactly, yeah.
But also their network engineering side. Like it's a very difficult problem for them to fix, and they have such a great attitude about it. And because they have such an open dialogue, the community is quite receptive to it. In a similar way, it kind of reminds me of Deep Rock Galactic, where there's like a good relationship between the developer and the community, to the point where the community is quite welcoming. So like if you look at a lot of the people that actively care about Helldivers 2, despite its its issues that it's riddled with at the moment, everyone's just yelling freedom, liberty, or a managed democracy. And in the same vein, if you look at Deep Rock Galactic, all they're yelling is rock and stone. And it's like there's actually quite a lot of similarities between those communities, because they're latching onto such a wonderful game that they're willing to sit with the issues because they trust the developer to not only be honest, but to get it done at a pace that's not backbreaking for the studio, but it doesn't put everyone off at the same time.
It's such a luxury to have for a studio, knowing that they've launched. And I'm going to say they probably did very much underestimate how many people are going to jump on.
Oh, yeah.
And it just continually grows. You see the Steam charts every day. It seems to just grow higher and higher.
I think today it hit 457,000.
Wow. They will easily hit 500. I wonder how high it might get. Maybe that's an article for another day to sort of explore that.
That's actually a very good article.
Because their servers, the pricing of a service must be very expensive. Anyway, let's get back on point. Because money is nothing we should be talking about in this day and age. Speaking of, though, microtransactions. This is the other thing I want to talk about with you.
They're micro.
They are so micro. They are so micro you can barely see them, which is... It's kind of surprising, but at the same time, it's one of those things that, do we actually celebrate it? Because it's still microtransactions and we shouldn't be celebrating anything microtransaction. But it's always nice to have a game where I think it's $69 for entry in general. And no matter how often you load into the game, there's none of these splash screens telling you what the latest season is, or the new skin, or Lady Gaga showing up. There's nothing in terms of, even when you go into the content for the microtransactions and so forth, there's nothing necessarily to call out how expensive it is or how much you can get for free if you buy this pack, things like that.
Yeah.
It's another thing where it's like, this is nice. It's just nice to have a studio that kind of, on one hand, takes the piss out of it, but also respects its audience.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very honest live service game, because we're used to games like Destiny, Diablo with its $60 or $70 pack that includes a mount, and that's the only reason to get the pack or whatever.
The mount. Yep.
Like you were just saying, maybe we shouldn't celebrate microtransactions at all. I disagree with that, only because these games are expensive to run. Like it's understandable. And for a studio that's as small as Arrowhead, because I think they're just under 100 people large, which then it's not tiny, but compared to some of the giants that make live service games, it's pretty small.
It is. It is.
And the fact that they feel confident enough and respect the players enough to just have not only a pricing scheme that doesn't feel egregious, but a content and design model that doesn't work off of FOMO. Because if you look at even the premium war bond, you can look at it as a battle pass, and that's basically what it is, but they don't expire.
I don't think there's an expiry date on any of the stuff, and all the vast majority of it you can get just by playing the game. You don't even have to spend a single dime on getting anything else unless you want to complete it quicker, obviously. But if you just keep playing regularly every day, you would pretty much get as much as you need in terms of your medals and war bonds and so forth to unlock it all.
Absolutely. And if you look at the design of the game's progression through the regular war bond, it's done very cleverly to the point where you need to go through that stuff to get your basic stuff set up. And through doing that, you'll end up naturally accruing the super credits you need to buy the premium war bond. So what it effectively feels like almost is you can kind of look at it as like hitting a prestige in the game. It's like, you've got the stuff that you need. Here's like the extra stuff you can do on top of it now because we've given you the tools and the resources to get this instead.
Yep. It just feels like a very clever package all around. Like in terms of all of that stuff we've just talked about, the actual combat itself feels very, very smooth. I should say performance on PS5, outside of your server problems and that, I haven't had any problems whatsoever. The frame rate holds up really well. Visually looks fantastic. The DualSense controller also has a few lovely little things that they don't really mention in the game at all.
No.
For example, the map. So if you load up the little map is in the bottom right-hand corner, if you use the touchpad of the PS5 DualSense, you can scroll.
Yep.
And I didn't know this because they never mentioned it. And I accidentally moved my finger across at one point and the map moved and I went, hold on. And I had one of those sort of aha moments and it actually felt really good. Because here's a studio that actually looks at the controller and goes, what can you actually do with this thing? And it makes sense to have it like an actual mouse pad. It's little things like that. It's the way the combat plays out. It's a hell of a lot of fun, just dropping ordnances everywhere, dropping nukes and so forth. Half the time you're accidentally killing everyone in your party and it never necessarily feels frustrating. Okay, deliberately. But it's just, there's so much fun to it. It plays really, really well. They are constantly tweaking it, obviously. I think the only major gameplay area that I've had a bit of frustration in is the escort missions, and I know a lot of people are in agreement in that. Yeah. But even then, it just because it's so hectic, it's that sort of everything's exploding around you, everything's going on at the same time. The music ramps up as you're trying to escape. Even if you don't escape and the dropship eventually comes down and the timer goes to 0, it still feels like you've accomplished something because you've actually gotten out alive and things like that.
Yeah,
it's a great time. It's a great old time. I'm so happy for them in terms of the way this has come out.
Absolutely, and I think what also needs to be highlighted is this is the studio's very first time at making a shooter, like a traditional shooter. Both in terms of like they've meshed third person and first person gameplay together. But my goodness, I did not expect some of the best shooting I've ever experienced in a shooter to come from these guys. Because this is their first attempt and the guns feel so good. And the fact that the game actually takes into account where the barrel of your gun is pointing, not just where your reticle is just so mind-blowing when we have games that try to be realistic, like Battlefield or even Call of Duty, even though it's a more arcadey kind of realism, and they don't take those things into account while touting realism on their front. And it's just, I never would have expected such a thing. I was expecting pretty arcadey shooting, but I'm so glad that they took the time and the effort to make the shooting feel as weighty and responsive as it is, because it also allows each gun to feel unique, even if they're variants of a pre-existing gun.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? They've been given the time on this. They've been given, I mean, it's probably been in development for over maybe 5-6 years, I'm going to say, but it's been 9 years since Helldivers 1 came out, give or take. That's a long time, but it shows. Like the package is pretty much complete. Server issues are going to happen in these situations. They didn't have an open beta or closed beta, so I understand that. But everything else just feels so on point. It's just, I can't really fault it for anything else. It's just that good. And it's one of those games where you really do need to play it. Every time someone comes into work now, I'm like, hey, have you seen Helldivers 2? And they're like, oh, what's this? I've sold so many copies on that now. alone. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Is there anything else you wanted to point out, Jordan?
I guess the only one negative for me on PC is they included a kernel level anti-cheat, which for those people that don't know, there are multiple levels of anti-cheat. Kernel is like existing below the level of your of your operating system, so it's more interacting with your hardware itself, or just like the BIOS. But it's very, very invasive, and I don't think it's really needed. Like, yeah, cheating is always going to happen, but when it's an entirely PvE focused game and a cooperative focused game at that, like, it's not really needed to have anything like that. All it does is it's potentially performance inhibiting for some people, because these anti-cheat and DRM measures, have varying degrees of intrusiveness and invasiveness depending on the person's build or PC or whatever device they're using.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've had cases where, in order for me to actually connect to the game, I've had to uninstall the anti-cheat and then force Steam to reinstall it because something about it has just gone wrong. And it's a bit of a blemish on an otherwise phenomenal game on PC, at least, because, like, it's not needed. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some decision from Sony down the line to ask them to do that, because at the end of the day, it is a Sony published title, despite the fact that Sony didn't really give it the attention it deserved.
Yeah, I think everybody underestimated this one in a big way, and
I think the
I hope
only
they learned from
people that didn't underestimate it were the fans of the original.
That's
like,
me.
Like, you'd probably have known, like, in the Slack chat, like, I kept saying that, this game is going to pop off. It's going to be so good. It's because, I was a big fan of the original.
I feel like re-downloading the original as well now, actually, like revisiting.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the way they've designed it. So, like, you can't really say that one game is better than the other, because they're different takes on the same formula.
There's two different experiences, exactly.
It's so well done. And there are things that are missing from the first game into, like, you don't have the vehicles. Some of the stratagems aren't in the game.
The mechs.
But they've already stated that they want to add them into the game. And prior to release, Arrowhead also stated that all content updates will be free. So what this shows is just, they want to get almost feature parity between the games, as well as they're wanting to add the additional races that they had in the later stages of Helldivers 1. But yeah, it's such a brilliant way, because I love when developers can almost reimagine an idea, but do it in a way that doesn't invalidate the original material existing, or the people going back to it. It's something that it's a weird comparison, but it's something that I love about the Resident Evil remakes. It's because there's such a fundamental redesign of the original game. You don't feel like you're missing out. You don't feel like you're only getting the core experience through the remakes, because if you play the originals, they're still a hugely different experience. And it's like that with this, because you have the same core principles for Helldivers 1 and 2 that translate so well to one another. You can go back to the first and understand everything, but it still feel completely different. And in no way is, like, one game better than the other.
Yep. It's two experiences I think that everyone should try. Let's wrap it up quickly. So I've uploaded the review by now, so by all means go and read that at well-played.com.au. I've scored it a 9 out of 10.
Ooh, tasty.
I would have given it higher if it wasn't for some of the tech issues, but I didn't want to give it any lower because I feel like it is a game that just hits the nail on the head in every regard in terms of what it is, the combat, the just general world building, even though there isn't necessarily a narrative, it just feels good. And I think that's something that's probably the biggest part of it, the biggest reason why I've given it a 9. It just feels right.
Absolutely. And even the smaller things, like the character barks where they're just, like, screaming for liberty, or they're just, like, yelling freedom while they're just hosing down enemies with a machine gun. Like, everything about it just feels so genuine.
It does. Jordan, we should probably let the other guys get on with the podcast.
I guess we should, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could talk here all day, but then they'd never stop us. Let's go and get some liberty and cast it back to the guys at their normal desk. Oh, wait, there's a bug! Get out of the way!
Alrighty, thanks for that. Once again, you can check out Mark's Helldivers 2 review on the website. Let's get back to the show. Alright, we got Well, that's pretty much it. Let's go into we've done all the big topics this week. There's not much else to kind of talk about, so we'll go into the news and maybe we can see if there's anything else to chinwag about. Sure, we can find some stuff. Isn't that right, James?
Sure, we can. We always manage to.
Hit us. What do you got on the news? Train
Dice Awards
this week.
The
Dice Awards.
the good guy versions of the Game Awards apparently were on last Friday. Yes, last Friday. It was it was good. It was the show that a lot of people say that they want from this, right? And like us included, where like game developers were given a good amount of time to talk about their sort of achievements when they won the awards. There was a extended sort of like bit about one of the Nintendo composers. Like it does genuinely care about the awards that it gives out. It's also hosted by Greg Miller, who I think dropped about 2 cum jokes in the first 10 minutes. One of them right after talking about the industry layoffs. What a fun thing. Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year. There's a bunch of other winners. I just specifically want to shout out Alan Wake 2 went home for Best Art Direction, which was a fun one. Marvel Spider-Man 2 Miles Morales for Outstanding Achievement in Character. Original Music Composition also to Marvel Spider-Man 2. Audio Design Marvel Spider-Man 2. This was kind of the thing of the night. Like there was a lot of awards for Marvel Spider-Man 2, and having this be something that's voted upon purely by sort of internal developers and whatnot, I find that really interesting because I don't think any of us would particularly peg Spider-Man 2 as like the most interesting game from last year.
Yeah,
and
so
to
that's
see
my
it,
question. Is this actually,
Yeah.
this is voted for by developers, right? These are the developer
yeah, it's like
awards.
an internal industry thing.
Because I
Yeah.
always considered the DICE Awards that something's run by the dudes who make Battlefield for some reason.
I also had that association in my head. It's not true, but I did.
Well,
have it
I
in
think
there as well.
I've come to that realization, but like initially I've always liked
Yes.
anyway, carry on. Sorry.
No, yeah, I mean, like, it's another award ceremony. It is a really nice alternative to the Game of the Year, awards. Cocoon nabbed Outstanding Achievement for Independent Game, which was really nice to see. Yeah, cool, good stuff. It was a really nice show, very much worth watching for the developers. I really did enjoy seeing them have some time to just talk and wax poetic. Like we had Sam Lake when they won for art direction, he got up there and he talked about how some of the effects that were in that game were actually practical effects, and they just put a bunch of colored dye into like a water bucket and like shook it up to make one of the filter effects in Alan Wake 2. And it's just little shit like that I'm glad that we had a space for these people to talk about. So yeah, that was cool.
Just on that
yeah.
Sam Lake,
Love that,
did
man.
I say
Yeah.
Sam Lake? Anyway, that's something where like a lastest thing. What's the like the commentary thing? Like would it be-
Grounded.
yeah, well that's where like stuff like that.
Yes.
Sure,
Sorry.
sure. That's like where stuff like that
No,
would be really
playing
cool.
automatically. It's quite
Oh,
loud.
But
Yeah.
but that's where like
Yeah.
those little features would be really like good to have. Like if you could,
Yeah.
they just start diving into, this was made with blah blah blah.
Mhm.
On the DICE Awards though, like I did like how I've only caught snippets and tweets and whatnot, but I don't even know his name. But the CEO of Larian just taking a
Yeah.
big dump on shareholders basically. Well,
Yeah,
sort of.
when they won Game of the Year, they I think there was a few of them up there, and they gave a pretty rousing speech about fuck the state of the industry. We deserve better than what we've been given, and yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
It was.
Yeah.
Shout outs.
What's not good to see is my prediction for this year is falling apart in front of me. Apparently, the Switch 2 has been pushed to 2025, according to a few developers who've said internally they got sort of communications from Nintendo to indicate that it had been moved into Q1 of 2025 instead of Q4 for 2024. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think we can survive another year without another Switch?
They are milking that thing. That thing, have you ever seen? God, I think it's either like a Family Guy or a Simpsons or one of those like jokes where there's like something's just been milked to the absolute. It's so dry.
Oh, yeah. Like Peter when he falls over and he hurts his knee kind of thing, just constantly sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine still gets a lot of use. Like it's my
Yeah.
my visual novel machine. So
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
if I'm not going to bed reading a book, I'm going to bed reading my Switch.
Mm.
What I will say, just quick, sorry, before no, let's finish the Switch talk and then we'll go to something else. Just that's kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, it's weird that we talked about when I reviewed another code, Lost Memory, or
Oh,
whatever
yeah,
it was.
yeah.
So we kind of talked about, this feels like the kind of thing that comes out towards the end of a console's life
Console.
cycle.
Yeah.
And now there's another 12 months to go
Psych.
on this. I just don't know what
wonder-
they're planning to put out, you know?
Well, I wonder if it's because maybe like the Zelda developers are like, we need another 12 months to get this game. I mean, that game already runs pretty well on Switch though. So,
Yeah, it was struggling,
Okay,
but
okay.
yes, it ran. Yeah.
So maybe they need.
I wonder if it's like a 3D Mario situation.
Yeah, or maybe it's something like that. But just to tie into that, there's been some news about the Sony stuff on that Sony side of things, right? And I'm just looking at game developer here because you're talking about your predictions going down the hill. Mine was like I was like, here it comes the golden ticket, baby. But this is from game developer, and it says Sony revealed players shouldn't expect new installments for any. I think it's meant to be any of its first party franchises this fiscal year. In its latest fiscal report, Sony president Hiroki Totoki said it wouldn't release any new major existing franchise titles like Marvel Spider-Man 2 or God of War before April 2025. So I was like, this year we won't get a big PlayStation first party game. Maybe that's saying established, I think. This is so there's still a chance like Wolverine maybe could come. But I also did latch on with I did bolt on that the PS5 Pro would not be announced this year, which there's been a lot of murmurs about that as well. So I think that might be we'll see.
I was just going to say Twisted Metal. Like, does that strictly fit into the semantics of what they're talking about here? Because I was fully expecting a Twisted Metal before the end of the year. It just kind of felt like the time was right.
Wait.
Yeah, but I guess it's
it?
not like a tentpole, you know, or whatever they're trying to talk about here. Like
Definitely not one of their major franchises.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like my wording was big first party game, like major holiday first party. So you could still have a first party game, but it's not like I'm talking like a big blockbuster holiday system seller thing. But I mean, have we spoken about the PS5 Pro? I think we have, haven't we? Right?
I think we've touched on it before. There was obviously so the kind of misquote of, the PS5 is entering the latter stage of its life cycle, which was later confirmed to be like, kind of back half maybe is what they were gesturing towards. So ostensibly we have another 3-4 years with this thing, which does feel short because time feels impossible since 2020. Like I think COVID kind of ruined a lot of perception around how long we've had these systems for. Because I certainly didn't feel like it had been 3 years with a PS5. And so like that was an odd one. I think a Pro is a bad idea because I don't feel like performance and fidelity is what's holding back games at the moment. I think it's more of a idea crunch problem than raw capability.
I also don't think we've really got bang for buck from the PS5 yet. Like we've had no Naughty Dog games thus far. We've had not Insomniac, who did Sucker Punch. We've had Housemarque and Insomniac. I think they're the major two.
Oh, we had a.
But that was both consoles.
Oh
right?
yeah, they did straddle the line, didn't it? Yeah.
So did Ragnarok. I'm talking about developers that are clearly gone out and harnessed the power of
Weirdly enough, I think like third party are doing it much better than the in-house boys at the moment on both sides of the fence. This isn't just a PlayStation or Xbox problem. I think it's both of them. But like Alan Wake 2 is the first time where I was like, oh, I'm playing a next gen game, you know, and that took several years and didn't come internally. So
and just to think that they're gonna already replace the PS5, it makes me think like, are they that short for cash? Like, do they need to sell another?
It's very old school Sony hubris. I just
I'm not. But the last one kind of made a bit of sense. Like the PS5 was starting, the PS4, sorry, was starting to age, and it made sense. I guess made sense to give it a little bit more beef.
How many years into the life cycle
wasn't it? Wasn't it 4 or 5?
It was a while.
I feel like it was
definitely in the back half, but I mean, I'm sure we'd expect that.
Because the PS4 Pro was probably that only had a 3-year life, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
And that
Let's find
console
out.
had like 8 years.
Yeah, it was a really long generation. Let's see. There was 3 years between the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. That is actually a
Okay.
lot shorter than I thought it was.
Yeah,
Oh,
same.
okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was a good leap, maybe. I don't really remember actually now, but
I think it was the 4K thing, right? Like it was
Yeah.
about getting that up and running.
because I played, I mean, this isn't like, but we talk about Cyberpunk. I played that on day one on PS4 Pro, and that ran. Or did I? Was it PS5? It was PS5, I think. Sorry. Never mind. Don't worry about what I was going to say. But anyway, but on the PS4, it's virtually like unplayable. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
But but again, just to tie into the PlayStation thing, I read that Marvel Spider-Man cost $300 million to make. So that's like I think another challenge with the whole industry.
Absolutely.
Really is just
And that's what I'm saying, right? It's not how they look. It's not like I don't think any of us here really need 8K games at the moment, right? Like it's just it would be good if they were more sustainable to make. And you don't get that by saying, okay, well now we have to do another leap in fidelity for a PS4 Pro. Like if anything, you should be kind of just Helldivers is a great example, right? Of a game that kind of came out of nowhere, proved that success is not necessarily tied to the best looking thing in the room. I don't know. It just feels like they're learning all the wrong lessons at the moment.
That's why I also really quite like Banishers, because I think I wrote it in my review. It's like an older style game. Like they don't, there's companies aren't really going out and making these types of games as much anymore. It's all about trying to find as much ongoing cash as you can to however you manage to do that. Loot boxes, season passes, blah blah blah. But yeah, 300 million. That shit is not sustainable, and that's what makes me think like, if Xbox is spending that much money on all their, they've got how many fucking studios now? If all their big dogs are spending, probably not 300 million, but in that realm, that's a lot of cash. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
Yeah. That's a mess. Actually, speaking of messes and don't nod, did you hear about the union report that came out about their workplace?
I did. That was right before we started playing, or while we were playing. I can't remember.
I think so. Yeah. February 15th is when I found a news article about it. But I think the idea being that there've been a lot of over-reliance on contractors for a lot of extra work at the moment. Terms like frequently changing deadlines, contradictory directions, and no long-term vision for staff welfare. Yeah, bummer. That's a shame. It does. I think it was the Remap guys. They said it does kind of make sense though when you look at Don't Nod's output for the past couple of years, and you're like, what is this studio exactly? Given how all over the place it is, this kind of tracks, right?
Yeah, well, they got one.
Talent turnover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jusant, Banishers, Life is Strange. The remakes are by them, is it?
No, I don't.
No.
So.
But
Yeah.
they've got
Harmony, The Fall of Reverie, which apparently happened as well.
Are they in Life is Strange 3? Or did I make that up? I might have made that up. But they're also doing the records one, the Lost Records, Bloom, the Lost Records, or whatever it's called. That's a lot of. That is a lot.
Yeah, it's eclectic.
Yeah. But I also wouldn't be surprised if this is a lot of studios, right, that operate this kind of way.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah.
Anyway, there you
News,
go. News. There was one more quick thing. Just going to read a headline for you. But the Forever Skies, the survival game, which I think is in early access at the moment, that is actually coming to PS5 as an exclusive in 2024. Sorry, so that will launch when it does enter 1.0 or the full full release. It's coming to PlayStation
Subnautica
as
in
an
the sky
exclusive
kind of thing.
Yeah, so we've got a preview up on
up
on the site. That's by Far From Home. It's like the Polish. I think they're fully Polish. Yeah, Polish dev team there. So
Fully
that's
Polish.
that's it. So that's and Ash has also got a little tips guide thingy for Ultros if you are getting stuck into Ultros after he got around it last week. And that's the news.
There you go.
Good job. All right, let's go to the off topics, and then we will wrap her up. Nathan, you've got the task of 2000's film of the week.
All right, so I better make sure that you guys are on the same kind of level playing field as me here, because I'm not trying to make this one hard, but I also don't kind of know what your cinema literacy is, so bear with me. I'll be kind. What kind of regions of foreign film are we most acquainted with? Let's talk Asia.
Nah.
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 Just
I think
how about you just try the synopsis, see how we
Yeah.
go.
Okay, all right. I'll give it to you, raw dog. I'm not going to censor any of this.
Okay.
After being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years,
Old boy.
Otis
what is it?
Family Feud, baby, hit that buzzer. All right, I'll go through it, and James will just sit there smiling to himself.
Sorry.
After being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, Otisu is released to find that he must find his captors within 5 days. Now, this is probably one of, I would say, uncontested top 3 pieces of South Korean cinema of the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just learned...
Really like it.
I
What's it
think
called, sorry?
Zach would like it. It's got big John Wick vibes. It is Old Boy from 2003.
Yeah, right. Never heard of it. Let's have a look.
James having a giggle. I've got
Don't
the
look it
short
up. Do not look it up. You just got to go in raw and have it happen to you.
I'll
Okay.
definitely don't ever watch a trailer or anything for it.
Well,
It's
no, I wanted to
very
see where to
significant.
watch it and shit. Where do we watch it if we want to check
Where
this
do
out?
we watch it? Well, apparently, if you're in Australia, you suck. You can only rent it on Amazon Prime. I think I've seen it previous. I think the last time I watched it might have been on the SBS On Demand, but that library rotates out pretty frequently, so it's not on there at the moment. It is an action
Amazon
thriller.
Prime Video, if that helps.
Yeah. Well, it's telling me it's a rent or buy option. Can you just?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, on Prime Video. Yeah.
How rotten are we? What's the RT score?
Oh, what is the RT score? I was just on IMDb, which was an 8.3 out
the critics
of
don't lie.
10. Rotten Tomato, 83%, 160 votes.
That's pretty good. Nice.
Yeah,
check it out.
it's a classic action thriller. But if you'd only just heard about this on the podcast, yeah, probably don't watch the trailer. Just watch it by yourself. But it is quite alarming, and its theme's probably not for the faint of heart.
All right. All right. Cool. Good stuff. Nice one.
Oh, Nathan. What is it?
Oh, mate. It's one of those formative films for me. It's just kind of like shifted how I look at cinema after I watched it.
Yeah, I get that.
I finished the second season of Kin. Actually, quite liked it in the end. I thought it started a bit slow, but there's characters in that show that I think are very well acted, very well written, and like performed. Several people shit me up the fucking wall, but in like a way that I know that that's their job, like that's their role is to be that character. And
Game of Thrones Joffrey, like exceptional, right?
Yeah, and it ended up being a very good season. So that's on SBS Demand. It's Irish. It's got I can't remember the guy's name, but it's the Daredevil, the new Daredevil.
Charlie Cox.
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah, I've not seen this. It's flown under my radar. It looks cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think you would like it because you and I kind of have a similar taste in terms of that. I don't know.
Slow burn Euro thrillers.
Yeah, I was trying more like British, but Irish is not really British, so I can't think of the UK. I guess UK. James might get around it. What do you think of an Irish accent, James?
Love it. Love it. Love it.
You're in.
Yep. I watched 2 movies. Starship Troopers, which was phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's in the air at the moment. It was the first time I'd seen it though, so I had a really, really great time.
Really?
Like that it functions as like a fun action romp and like a biting criticism on the things that it's about. Fantastic. Like just ticks all the boxes. Love of Verhoeven. Love a young Denise Richards. She was stunning in that movie. That is a beautiful woman. That is incredible. And on the flip side of that, I watched Joker for the first time.
Oh,
first
okay.
time.
Bad.
Okay.
Interesting. I always
Yeah,
find the discourse so polarizing around this.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I
I mean,
really
look, I will
liked
say
it. Yeah, right.
I'm
Same.
surprised it garnered such a reaction as it did because I don't think there's much to it. Like, it's a pretty straightforward, character study, depression era of a city kind of romp. Like, there's not
Mm.
not a huge amount there. I did
Mm.
love there was a
Yep.
stretch at the end where he fully goes Joker mode and he has his two mates over in the apartment and then goes to the talk show and does what he does at the talk show. And that whole stretch, I was having a great time. I
That's your
believed
fever
the
dream.
performance.
Mm.
Yeah, it was just a really good moment for the Joker. And then everything either side of that, I was like, okay, all right. So yeah, not for me. But still, I'm glad I watched it. I like not getting things off the list. So
I really thought you were going to say Starship Troopers 2 there for a moment.
oh no,
Yeah, on the
no.
other side of the coin.
I
Yeah.
might, yeah. We'll
Don't.
see. We'll see.
Don't.
Oh no, don't.
Well,
I saw a Twitter thread saying that there is an anime adaptation that just follows on from the first Starship Troopers
I
film.
had heard this as well. Yeah.
The others, don't. Yeah, it's just direct to video schlock.
Ah, got it. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, it's not.
There you go.
There you go, eh?
Hmm.
Yeah. Anything else we got to chat about? I'm excited for.
Nathan, did you watch anything or?
Quick, very very quick. It's more anime. It's a Netflix series, so it has probably crossed your screen. It's called Monster. It's a psychological thriller. It came out in the early 2000s. It's a absolute classic. I was blown away. 74 episodes. Very quickly, it's about it's set in Germany during and after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and there's a neurosurgeon who has a child. Some twins come into the hospital, and one of these children has been shot in the head, and adopted parents have been murdered. The neurosurgeon performs a correct extraction, brings his child back to life. This child is the monster. He's basically brought the devil back to life. The child is effectively Adolf Hitler in waiting. There's an enormous conspiracy that goes right deep into the heart of like communist Czechoslovakia and Germany. It's extremely political. It's extremely psychological. It's very dense, very atmospheric, and it completely avoids all the tropes you associate with anime weeb shit. Like, there's none of that here. This is
You are speaking my language.
yeah. This is
great.
this is straight face, like make your blood run cold kind of shit. It's wonderful,
Amazing.
perfect arc right from episode 1 through to 74. Loved it.
74. How long are these?
Well, remember these are 20-minute episodes,
Right,
so you're chowing through them pretty quick, and there's no filler in there. Yeah, real tasty course.
Excellent. I'm putting it on
Right.
the list. I'm excited. Monster. Let's get around it.
Netflix. Yep.
VHS cast, you know?
What's with everything being called Monster? You got the
Yeah, that is a
Charlie's-
thing. Because I told you about a Japanese film when I came back from the Philippines. I watched called Monster from the current awards season. That was probably one of my favorite films of last year.
One of my favorite films is called Monster. It's
Charlie's
You're-
Theron.
No.
Oh,
No, it's the other
Gareth
one.
Evans, whatever his name is,
Yeah,
the
it's-
Gangs of London dude.
Gareth Edwards. Yeah, your mate.
Gareth Edwards,
James,
that's the one.
Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Rogue One. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Is that the same guy? Or am I getting him confused?
Yeah, it's him. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He did this little movie that.
Yeah, I'm getting him confused. Sorry.
Yeah, basically is two people, and if you read into the actual, not development, is it production? Sorry, of this film, it's very very interesting. Like, they would go to these locations, they would ask, basically they'd film first, ask permission later, kind of stuff like that. Yeah, very cool, very cool little film. Very cool soundtrack as well. It's got by John Hopkins, if you know that name.
It's vaguely like District 9, isn't it? I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
Yes. It's like
I did not rate District 9.
Yeah, but it's not like District 9. It is like District 9, but not like District 9. If that makes sense. Probably not.
Good stuff.
All right, cool.
Nailed it.
Check it out, James. That's your homework for this week, is to watch Monster.
No, I'll be too busy watching other Monster. I'm sorry.
I wonder where it's actually, if you can watch Monster.
I think it was on Stan, because I did watch it.
Bloody Stan.
Sorry, mine's called Monsters. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Mate.
apologize. you can watch it on. Well, nothing. I don't think. Doesn't appear to be on anything.
Yar har Australians.
Where to watch? Let's see what comes up.
Pirates, bringing it back full circle.
Maybe on Prime if you're lucky. Anyway, or just give me a shout outs and I'll send you a
On the DVD
Blu-ray.
over. Yeah.
That's it. I'll have movie night. All right, cool.
Backflix.
That's it. I don't know if that would be a very good lineup. You'd have like the Phantom, bit of Deep Rising.
Just got the
Monsters.
same 3 films on rotation.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd have Donnie Darko and I'd have Pan's Labyrinth. There's a couple of good ones in there.
Okay.
And Treasure Planet for the kids.
Yeah, okay. We're warming
For
up.
the kids.
All right. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the WellPlayed DLC podcast. If you want to check out the content, you can go to www.well-played.com.au to check it all out. The Skull and Bones review from Nathan there and a bunch of other reviews we gave a shout out to. Don't forget to check out the YouTube talk through, subscribe, get around it, ding the bell, whatever you got to do on that. Comment for the algorithm. We love you. And you two, I will see you next week and have a great weekend.
Here we go.
You too.
Right.
Yeah.
See yous.